Hello there, and welcome to the tour of the Giant Marabou class Troop Dropship, the 9th vehicle in my military utility logistics or transport vehicles series. My name is Wimperman, and I am the chief designer, chief builder, chief architect, and chief dumbass behind the Giant Marabou project. So, before I talk to you about this new vehicle, before I show you around the new vehicle, there is a bit of important information. Those of you who have seen other multi-Vs of mine are expecting this, except for when I accidentally forget it. Now, there's a bit of important information to tell you about the power and its shields, and its thrusters, actually, on this one. So it comes with 8 generators, 4 large and 4 small. They're not all on by default. Only 1 large and 1 small turn on by default when you use your power keybind or the power switch in the general column. The others are set to various device groups. So when you turn the thrusters on using another method, it won't turn any generators on. When you turn the thrusters on using the main propulsion device group shortcut, it'll turn on extra thrusters. When you turn your shields on using the keybind, it'll turn on extra generators. Duh. When you turn on shields using your keybind, it won't turn on extra generators. However, when you turn your shields and weapons on using the shields and weapons device group switch, it will turn on extra generators. There is also a small generator also set to the max lift switch up here. That's not quite so important because even the max lift thrusters don't use a lot. So do bear in mind that if you are using this ship and you're using your default keybinds or the other general, the switches in the general column, things might explode. Now, I will cover that more when I get to the power, fuel and air segment. I'll probably cover it a little bit in the propulsion bit as well. And at the end, assuming that I remember, I will tell you how to fix it if you don't like that. Now that that little warning is out the way, I've got some stuff to tell you about this. And the first thing I want to tell you about is its name, why I've called it the Giant Marabou. So, here we have the 2 vehicles that are below it. It was a week ago now. I turned that off. So these are the 2 vehicles below it in the multi-V series, as you can see, multi-V8 and multi-V7. And you can also see what they're called, the Argentavis there and the Quetzalcoatlus there. Now, those of you who have played Ark probably recognize those names. Some of you, probably a couple, might recognize them regardless of having never played Ark. So, the Argentavis is one of the largest feathered birds ever to have flown. It is now extinct, but that is what that's named after. The Quetzalcoatlus is named after one of the biggest pteranodons. No, pterosaurs. There we go. Yes, pterosaurs. Yes, that's right. Of which one is a pteranodon, of which another is a Quetzalcoatlus. Now, it's not the biggest. It's the 3rd, I think it was. So, I'm sure you can guess that these 2 are named after extinct flying things. So when I came to this one, I also wanted another extinct flying thing. Now, my initial thought was a bird, an extinct bird that carries around its young, and I couldn't really find any or think of any. And then, of course, I remembered that famously storks carry our young. So when you have a baby, a stork brings it to you. And I thought it would be funny to name it after an extinct stork. Now, the Giant Marabou stork, which is extinct, there is a Marabou stork, which isn't extinct, and as you can probably tell by the name, isn't giant either, well, that's still around, and because of the way it looks from behind, that stork is known as the Undertaker stork. And I thought it would be funny, being as this is a stork that could also be called an Undertaker stork. I mean, I imagine the Giant Marabou looks like an Undertaker from behind, just the same as a not giant one does. So I thought it would be funny that the crew of these ships, and maybe higher ranking officers and such, refer to the troops that are dropped off by this as babies, and that the troops that are dropped off in it refer to the people that fly you there as Undertakers. I just thought that would be funny, that might be something that would happen, you know, in the military in real life. I just thought that'd be funny. So there you go, that explains the name. Now I'll explain why it's the 9th and not maybe the 7th instead of that, and then that would be the 8th and that would be the 9th, because if you look at the size, I really should have done that before I did these two. And to explain that, I need to go in orbit, so I'll see you up there. Okay, here's my construction area where I do all my building, and here we have a big ship. It's the Hussars class, and this isn't actually what I need to talk about, but it leads me on to what I need to talk about. So this is a tank landing craft. Now, the reason I've built the Troop Dropship now is because the ship after this that I'm going to build once this is finished is going to be an orbital assault ship. So it's not going to look like a Conestoga class like the USS Sulaco from Aliens, but if you know the Sulaco from Aliens, you know what an orbital assault ship will be like. It's going to carry around and deploy ground troops in smaller ships. And that's where these things come in. So this one's the cargo, and that's an empty one. The one down on the planet is the personnel. So these are the personnel one isn't actually a dropship. It's just a personnel transport ship. I mean, you could maybe drop it into a conflict zone, into an active war zone, but you really wouldn't want to because it's not armed as well, and it is slightly less armored as well. And the orbital assault ship is going to carry at least 2 Quetzalcoatluses, probably 3, depending on the size. But so that's the idea. But I also wanted troop dropships. So I wanted vehicle dropships, troop dropships, and these transport ships to be on board. But of course I hadn't done the troop dropship yet, and I was wondering why I was waiting. And as you can see, this one is almost finished before I decided to go and do it. But I decided to leave this here and go and do it, so I did it. Right, I'm going to go back down there and talk about another couple of things. Right then, here we are. So, now I'm going to talk about its looks, actually. So, I wanted something that was a kind of hybrid between this, the Quetzalcoatlus, which is itself an inspiration of, or my own interpretation of the UD4 Cheyenne from, again, Aliens. And I wanted it to be between that and the Anvil Terrapin from Star Citizen, because I quite like that chunky look. Now, what I ended up with kind of looks a little bit similar to the quad tilt rotor from Edge of Tomorrow. But that's how that got like that. Now, if you take these... Oh, and there's a little bit of an interesting... mildly interesting story. If you take these side wing thruster pod things off, it does also sort of look and kind of function a little bit like a Star Trek Defiant class. Loosely. Now, the mildly interesting story about this. So, I originally wanted 4 of these little wing thruster pod jobs, just as it is now, 2 at the front and 2 at the back. However, when I started building it, I couldn't get it to look right. So, and to be fair, that's because I was trying to take it off the top here. I was trying to have it slope down from there and still have this shape. So, if you can use your mind's eye and imagine that comes out more, sort of that bit, the middle bit of this shape, it just didn't look right. So I actually did leave it off. And I actually think it looks quite good. I mean, it certainly looks more like this with the front ones off. And I got all the way to the point where I was naming and grouping the devices, and I didn't like the fact that it didn't have enough lift. So it had 12 lift thrusters, including max lift, and it has 12 forward thrusters. And I didn't like the fact that there was as many lift as there were forward. There should be more. So I played around with the design, and what I ended up with was slapping a couple of these wing thruster arrangements onto the sides of the ship. And to be fair, I mean, it does look a little bit slapped on, but I don't think it looks too bad. I did originally plan to put landing gears on it, and I was a bit bummed when I couldn't then put this on and have the landing gears on it. But when I put it back, I was quite happy about the fact that I like that look. I did also play around with the idea that the troops disembarking from this thing would take cover here and fire through there. And I was going to put kind of... So one of the reasons it didn't look right before is because the gap would have been bigger here. It would have been big enough to walk through. And then there would have been small sort of barricades coming off, one off the front of this, and then one off the back of that, so that troops could take cover behind the ship before it took back off. But it didn't come to be, but never mind. So there you go. That's all the behind-the-scenes info, I think. So now I'm going to tell you about its role and its task equipment. So, its role, as you can probably tell, is a troop dropship. And to facilitate... Oh, hang on. So, it's tasked with taking ground troops from a ship in orbit down to a planetary surface. Then, if it's not returning to go and get more troops, it can stay on station and act as close air support or as ground attack, similar to a ground attack ship, so a helicopter, but, you know, no blades because spaceships. Now, to facilitate those tasks, it has 10 seats in the back, so that's 8 for a full section of men, plus 2 extras for maybe an officer or an advisor or a specialist or Ripley. It also has 2 gunner seats in the front for operating the turrets at the front, which are also at the front. Now, to perform the ground attack and close air support, the CAS roles, it has rocket launchers, Gatling guns, and a railgun, as well as 4 forward turrets and 2 at the back just for defense. Yeah, I think that'll do nicely. So that's the end of that segment. The next segment then is its propulsion, handling, and lift capacity. Okay, so starting with its forward thrust, and as I've already alluded to, it has 12 forward thrusters. They are all large tier 2s. In fact, every thruster on board is large tier 2. So if I forget to say that, just bear it in mind that there are no other flavours of thruster on this. They are all large. So 12 for forward, pushing it forwards. Braking and reverse, there are 8. 2 there, 2 there, and then the matching on the other side. Lateral, there is only 6. 2 there, 2 in this side pod thingy, and 2 in this side pod thingy. Matching on the other side, of course. Downwards, there isn't many. It's 6 down again, but as I've said in other of the SVs, I like having very little downward thrust because it makes landing easier. you don't then just get shot into the ground at, you know, twice the speed of sound because you tapped your S key. No. C? No. Control it'll be for you, I expect. Probably. Right, anyway. So that's that. Oh, and then lift. Oh, in case you're wondering, by the way, why I don't turn the thrusters on and then lift it up off the floor so we can have a look rather than going into the floor, it's because when I do that, of course, the thrusters are on and they make a hell of a noise, so I leave them off. Although, actually, I think I'm going to have to show you which ones come on. So there you go. Those are the default lift thrusters, the 2 at the tail, the 4 in the side pods are all the default thrusters. And then the max lift are the ones you can see that are off. So the 1 in each of these little side pod nacelle jobs, and then the 4 in the main body bits. Yeah, I don't really have the words for these parts of the ship, but that'll do. I think you understand. Now, as I said at the beginning, there is a little bit to talk about with the power. So when you use the main propulsion device group switch, it'll turn on a large and a small generator. If you don't do that, it probably won't have enough power. In fact, I know for a fact. So 1500 plus 700 is 2200, and power units that those 2 generators produce. The thrusters, I'm pretty sure, come to... Oh, it all comes to 2150, but actually I think that includes max lift, but whatever. And speaking of max lift, when you use the max lift switch, that also turns on a small generator. So it's not as bad as you would think, but it's still probably better to use that switch rather than this one. Lift. Right, so lift capacity. So with max lift off, the default thrusters will allow this vehicle to operate in up to roughly around about 4.1 G. It's actually slightly less, but it's close. But that, of course, as I always say, is dry weight. That's with no ammo or anything in it. That's just as it comes. Now, with max lift on, it will lift around 213.1 tons in 4 Gs, and the vehicle itself weighs 114. So basically, you are left with about 99-ish tons left that it can lift. I did a screen. Did I account for that? Yes, 99.1. Look at that. Ha ha ha. You shouldn't have looked in there, naughty. We'll get inside in a minute. I know that was my fault. I was just being funny. Well, trying to be. Okay, so as for mobility, starting with its maneuverability, and we do need to turn the thrusters on for this. Maneuverability, it will accelerate forwards at 40 meters per second squared. It'll brake or reverse at 27 meters per second squared. It'll do 20 laterally and downwardly, and it'll go upwardly at 40 meters per second. Again, there's the same number of thrusters for up as there are for forwards. As I said earlier, it's only the max lift that I've added. And you can probably guess that the lateral and the ups are the same because, again, the same number of thrusters. As for its agility, 30 degrees per second yaw, 32 pitch, and 44 roll. Now, that does change with max lift on. So with max lift on, the upward changes to 73 instead of 40. The yaw obviously doesn't change, but the pitch changes, I think it's from 32 to 35, and the roll is up to 57. From 44 to 57, and yes, I was right about the pitch. So yeah, there you go. Okay, so I will give it a quick test fly. So as you can see, up in the top right-ish, max lift is its max speed is 70 meters per second. This is how it flies with pilot mode off. Whee! So not too bad. Now, originally it was going to have the same thrusters as the Quetzalcoatl. So what is it, the medium jet thrusters? But it was going to make the design too big, too heavy, so I went down. Right, let's go into orbit. So it'll still do 69, even straight up, but roughly 90-ish degrees-ish. Not too bad. There we go. So I am going to turn on pilot mode now. Okay, no, apparently I'm not. There we go. So there we go. She handles quite nicely, I think. I mean, other than Straff. But then it's sort of... You control it more like a helicopter than you do a fighter jet. So, hang on, let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to strafe to the left, wait for it to get up to speed. Now, if I let go, it takes a long time to slow down. I'm going to go back the other way, except this time I'm going to roll to slow down. Slows down quicker. And you can do the same with forward and reverse, obviously. So it's kind of intended to be flown a bit like a helicopter-ish. Alright, back into suborbit. Let's go. I overshot it a little bit, but then, I haven't had a lot of practice. I'm sure you'll forgive me. Overshot by 32 meters. Yeah. Okay. Let's put her down then. You'll see what that other ship is in a minute, by the way, in case you're curious. Right, that's the end of that segment then. So the next segment I'm going to talk about is its power, fuel, and air. Right, now this is where I'm going to talk about at length about the generators. So, as I said at the beginning, it has 4 large and 4 small generators. 1 large and 1 small will come on by default when you either use your power keybind or when you use the power switch under the general column. Then there will also be 1 large and 1 small that will come on to power the thrusters when you use the main propulsion switch. 1 small generator will come on when you use the max lift switch, and then 2 large and 1 small will come on when you use the weapons and shield switch to help power the shields. Well, to fully power the shields, actually. Now, fuel. It has a pentaxid tank. It has 2 large and... No, it doesn't. It has 2 small and 21 large fuel tanks. There we go. Got those 2 the wrong way round. As for its air, it has 14 O2 tanks. That might seem a lot for a ship this size. And to be fair, in reality, in Empyrion, the computer game, it actually is. But in lore, where this ship is meant to carry around 10 people in the back and 3 in the cockpit, 14 is probably enough. So 14 O2 tanks, they feed 6 ventilators, 2 in the cockpit, 4 in the back. There are 2 O2 stations near the door, and the ship itself is segmented into 2 compartments, the cockpit and the troop compartment in the back. There we go, that's the end of that segment. So the next segment is its weapons, defences and construction. So, weapons, in order to provide close air support and ground attack functionality, it has 4 dumbfire rocket launchers, 2 on each side in the shoulders. It has 2 Gatling guns, 1 in each shoulder, and a railgun for some snipey snipe in the nose. It also has the maximum allowed of 6 Gatling turrets, 2 on each shoulder, 1 on top, 1 on the bottom, and 2 at the tail, 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom, to help protect the troops disembarking. defenses, it has a shield, and it has some armor. As you can probably tell in the description for this ship on the workshop, the armor is a mix between hardened steel and steel. The hull is also a mixture of hardened steel and steel. And that is what this ship over here shows. So this is an unpainted Caribou. Close. It's not a feral reindeer. It's the other one, Marabou. So this is the unpainted one. So I saved this before I painted that. And as you can see, the dark grey is hardened steel, the middle medium grey is steel, and then the lighter stuff is carbon composite. And I will also give you a view inside. Oh, yeah, okay. So this is unpowered, so I'll turn my headlight on. So here you can see what the inside not only looks like, but is made of. Steel, steel. Carbon composite in the ceiling, but that's because the roof itself is hardened steel. Steel, 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 a bit of carbon. So there you go. That gives you... And I've started doing this now because it saves me... an unpainted ship, I mean. It saves me going around the painted one with my multi-tool out going, what's that? Is that hardened steel? I can't remember if I've downgraded that or not. Did I upgrade it? I don't know. So there you go. This is, I think, a much easier representation of what the ship is made of. Oh, underneath a little bit. I didn't really show it. You can't really see, but that is carbon composite. It's just I paint. So I put a whole bunch of these. I call them illuminated orientation panels. I put a whole bunch on a ship once before I painted them. And then, of course, when I came to paint the ship, because I usually do that after all of the device grouping and shortcuts and stuff, I then couldn't remember which bits were supposed to be my orientation panels. So I now paint them as soon as they put them on, in case you're wondering why they are painted and nothing else is. You're probably not. You probably don't care. Right, that's the end of that segment. So the next segment's going to be a quick one. Resource gathering, production, and storage. Resource gathering has none. Production has none. No constructors on board. Storage isn't a long list, so it's not going to be. So it's not going to take long. 2 3,000 SU ammo containers. 8 small cargo boxes. 4 armor lockers. 4 mini fridges. And that's it. So that's the end of that segment. The next segment is its interior layout and any remaining devices. So as I've been doing recently, I'll talk about the remaining devices that are on the outside before I go inside. So you might be able to notice all the blinkies. So this ship, as usual, is fully flight regulation lighting compliant. So these are the running lights. They show any observer that the ship is powered. Now, I suppose I won't talk about it then. I'll talk about it now. So you're going to see me flick some switches, and I'm going to flick later on as well. So nav lights. Red on the port, white on the stern, green on the starboard, steady on lights that show any observer the orientation of the vehicle. Again, the illuminated orientational panels do that as well. It's just a redundancy. The only difference between those and the nav lights is they also have yellow orientation panels on the bottom. Main propulsion will also turn on the anti-collision beacons. Those are flashing lights that are red on top, one there, hence why I looked at it, and one on each of these fins. And then flashing yellow on the bottom, those 2 there, and then one near the front there. And they sort of, so on NASA ships at the moment, we have yellow steady on lights on the bottom. But there isn't really any need for anti-collision beacons. And I thought when we get to the point where we're flying around in space like we do in the sky, we might actually need anti-collision beacons that are on the top and the bottom, just like actual aircraft. Would they just have red on top and bottom and then a yellow steady-on light as a ventral nav light? I thought it might be possible that the yellow steady-on lights on the bottom would transition into a yellow anti-collision beacon. So if you see a flashing red light, you're seeing the top, and if you're seeing a flashing yellow one, you're seeing the bottom. And of course, anti-collision beacons come on automatically with the thrusters, so that any observer knows that the ship could move at any moment. And then, of course, we have flight strobes. Those are the fast blinking ones that show any observer that the ship is in motion. I would have liked those to be automatic, but unfortunately that's not possible in this game. Never mind. It does mean that if it annoys you, you can, of course, leave them off. Right. Yeah, I will show you that now, because it's kind of inside, but it kind of isn't. So, detector is there underneath the pilot seat, as you can see. There is headlights, but we'll cover that more when we get to the signals and stuff. Landing gear, lots of them. And as you can see, the weight at the back doesn't pull it off its front landing gear, which is nice. There's enough frontal weight to keep it down. I think that's everything, because everything else is inside. Whoops, that's the wrong button. It was close to it, though. Right, let's go and have a look inside. The ramp, that light up there, that light there is on that motion sensor. The door, as you can see, is manual. It is not on a motion sensor. The core is there. So in here, the lights, that one and that one, are on that motion sensor or that switch if you want to keep them on when you get into a seat. So on either side of the door, we have an O2 station above a small cargo box, another small cargo box underneath the ventilators. O2 tanks are above the seats there. Between the seats, armor locker fridge, armor locker cargo box. Another ventilator at the front. In the roof, CPU extenders. Now, I have done my best to make sure that everything is separated. So the reason the core is right at the back here is because if it gets destroyed, it's not going to take anything out with it. So even these CPU extenders, there's a good 3 blocks space between them and the core. Right, this door... Oh, windows in the floor for the troops to see exactly how far they've got before they land, just so they can, get a good... I mean, they got the back windows as well, but there you go. That door is actually on a motion sensor, that one. Then we move into the cockpit, where we have lights, one there, and one there, which is on that motion sensor, in through that gap. There's the shields. As you can see, the door has force fields. Gunner seat, there and there. Their little heads-up display comes on when you turn weapons and shields on. Loud! So there you go, that comes on as well. In through the shutters, we have a little bit of resupply access. So there's one of the 3K SU ammo containers, pentaxid tank. The other one and a fuel tank. Now, if I God mode into here, you'll see that most of this is fuel. Some of it is cargo extensions. Can I find any yet? There. Now, the cargo extensions mostly go forward of here. They fill up the shoulders, these bits. And then, in the back of these bits, is the generators. Can I get a good shot? Yes, I can. Now, I have tried to separate... I haven't done a good job there, but never mind. I have tried to separate the generators from the fuel and the thrusters. I could have done a better job there, but never mind. It would have meant less fuel. So I have sort of crammed fuel into it because I figure the more fuel this has, the longer it can stay on station providing support for the ground troops it's just dropped off, especially since you need to maneuver for arresting, especially strafing, lateral movement and that kind of stuff. So I figured it would need more fuel than similar sized vessels. Right, moving forward again, we have the ramp up to the cockpit seat. That switch leaves the lights on when you get into the seats. There isn't a matching one on the other side. Ventilators, mini fridges, cargo boxes, the seat with some LCD work. There's the warning about the shield power. And there is all the other stuff that I've done. Now, that is... unless I've made mistakes, that is correct and accurate. That is its lift performance. So when it says additional, that has already taken into account the 114 tons of the vehicle. So it'll lift the vehicle and another 99.1 tons with max lift on in 4G. There's the HUD display for what the power save does. This is a little decorative one. It does explain the generators on board and how they turn on and off. Now, some of you are going to be good at maths enough to know that that doesn't add up to 100%. It's not supposed to. It doesn't. It wouldn't. That's how much of the total power that can be produced is being allocated to the thrusters when they're on, of course. So when you have all the thrusters and the max lift on, it uses 29, or they all use 29% of the power that all of the generators will provide. Shields there, again, 41% of all of the power, 1.6, blah, 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 for the weapons. Yes, I mathed it out because it's... I mean, it's not fun to do it, but it's kind of a nice little, you know, reality thing, immersion thing. Right, so since I'm here looking at the toggleable heads-up displays, that leads me on to the... I'm going to use that to lead me on to the next segment, which is its shortcuts and signals. Now, you have seen me play around with quite a few of them already, but I will talk through them again, just in case people are skipping around in the video. Main propulsion turns on the main thrusters, the ones I showed you earlier, and the large and small generator that are in a device group. Actually, let's show you. Oh, I always forget to mention. All of my devices are custom named and put into custom device groups. So please do not use the auto group function. I would recommend that when you spawn the ship in, you should immediately take a template, and then if you accidentally auto group, you can put it on a repair pad, and supposedly it will fix all of the custom device groups as well. So propulsion switch will turn on these generators in that device group. The next one down is max lift. That'll turn on the additional lift thrusters and the generator in the max lift device group. Then we have weapons and shields. That will turn on, of course, the shields, all of the weapons, including the turrets, and two large and a small generator, which is in this device group for powering the weapons and shields, mainly the shields. So I think I did the maths, and I'm pretty sure the weapons come to about... funny enough, I think it's the same as the weight, except in power units rather than tonnage. I'm pretty sure it comes to 114 power units for the weapons. It might be 119, but I think it's 14. Whatever. Right. So do bear in mind, if you're going to be using the shields and stuff, you really ought to be using these switches. Again, I will tell you at the end how to change that if you don't like it. The next one down is empty, and that's because I like having all of the toggleables in the same order amongst ships. So this would be something like drills or something. I can't remember exactly, but that's why it's left blank. Again, I've said it in other videos, but I really ought to have done that with the HVs as well, but I didn't think about it at the time. Moving forward, I probably will, but it means that artificial gravity is always on number 5. I mean, unless something doesn't have artificial gravity, but it has, you know, enough things, enough device group toggles that it needs all of them. so I might occasionally put something there. Next one is blank. Air vents. I cover this in every video. I will do it again quickly just in case it's the first tour of mine you've seen. So if you turn oxygen off, the power left doesn't change, because although it stops blowing air into the compartments, it doesn't turn the ventilators off. However, if we switch the air vents off, you'll see the power left does change. That means if you're in a breathable atmosphere, you can save some fuel. Next one down is blank. Unassigned, as I call it on the HUD displays. Moving on to the custom signal toggles. The first one is usual as power save. Does the usual stuff in mine. That was a week ago. And it does tell you in the display there what it does. So it turns on and off the Wi-Fi, the passenger seats, all of the motion sensors and levers, the labels and signs, including the cockpit displays and the registry displays. Actually, I don't think this one has any labels or signs. I really ought to have taken that off, but never mind. I don't think it really matters. Next two down are unassigned. Nav lights. That turns on and off the red on the port, the green on the starboard, and the white on the stern steady on lights that I showed you earlier. The flight strobes turn on and off the bright flashing strobe lights that warn any observers that you are in motion. Then there's headlights. This ship has 3 spotlights on the front, one on the nose, one in the corner of each shoulder. Next one down is obviously unassigned, and then finally we have the rear door. Now, unlike my usual closed door switch, this will actually operate it fully. So when the pilot touches down to drop troops off, the pilot themselves can open and close the door. There you go. Right, so that's the end of that segment, and that leads me on to the next and last segment, which is its CPU and upgrading. CPU is just over 60,000 of the allowed tier 4 100,000. Just in case you're skipping around in the video, I will show you again real quick where the core is. It's there, and the CPU extenders are there and there. Or more accurately, they are there and there. There you go. Upgrading wise, though, there is no built-in upgrade path. That doesn't mean you can't personalize or modify. For example, something I might do, especially if you're also in a single player, you don't need all these seats. Feel free to rip all of this out, maybe move an armor locker into here, perhaps. Maybe the opposite side to the switch on that wall there, maybe. And then fill this in with cargo containers and extensions. Perfectly free to do that kind of thing. Again, these seats aren't needed, so you can rip those out and maybe, I don't know, put something else there. But yes, as for upgrading, there is no actual built-in upgrade path. Oh, there's a little bit of space. There you go. There's 2 blocks of space on each side of the tail. If you can dig your way under the tail fins here, there is a bit of space. I don't know what you'd use it for, but obviously you're more than welcome to. Other than that, I think everything else is filled in with armor and stuff. Yeah. Right, I'm going to talk a little bit real quick about these registry numbers. They are sort of synonymous with the ones you would find on Star Trek Starfleet ships, the Enterprise NCC 1701. So, feel free to replace the number symbols at the ends of the registries. Now, you can, of course, not bother and just leave them like that. No one will know or care. You can, of course, change them for a number that means something to you. You can, of course, also look at the workshop and see how many subscribers there are. And you should have been, well, maybe around about the last one, or you'll be the next one if you haven't subscribed to it yet. So do feel free also. That's what it's supposed to be, the number that there have been before yours. So yours would be the next number. But obviously a lot of people, I imagine, wouldn't be bothered to do that. That's fine. So you can leave them or replace them or work it out which one is yours. I don't mind. Right, one more thing to show you. Of course, being a multi-V, it comes with various other primary colours that I've included in the palette. Obviously, it comes in this khaki tan colour, but I've included this camouflage green, which does look nice, and it includes this light blue grey, which does look very nice, and this dark blue grey, which also looks rather nice. So there we go. Right, as usual, one last thing to do while you are here. I'm going to publish it. As I always say, I'm not sure why I do it. It's just nice to include you in the bit of the process, even if it's just the bit at the end. And there we go. Right, so... Oh, I very nearly forgot. So, if you don't like the whole generators coming on with the power, with the weapon switch and the propulsion switch, all you need to do is move these generators in that one, and that one device groups. Just take them out, whichever one bothers you, all of them, and put them into that device group, the power main device group. That's all you need to do, just in case people don't like it. So there we go. Now we're finished. Right. So thank you very much for taking an interest in the Giant Marabou class troop dropship. I hope you get some use out of it, and hopefully I will see you in another video for a different build. So thank you again, and goodbye.